Hello, 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 everyone. I am so excited to be here in conversation with Amanda Acker. And Amanda has such a powerful, powerful story. She came from a past of drug abuse, homelessness, and being a convicted felon. And she's now broken through and has been able to really let the good things into her life. She's now on a mission to inspire and motivate people just like you. People have had a difficult past and haven't yet realized that they are stronger than they think and can have the life they want and deserve. And Amanda wants to help you rise above the labels of society and burst through the ceilings that you put on yourself. Amanda's core message is that our past doesn't define us and that we are way stronger than we think. And I'll add to that, you can be the heroine of your own journey. And so, Amanda, welcome, welcome. And I would love it if you could tell us a bit about your story.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm so grateful to be here with you. So to dive into a little bit of my story. Um, I'm a child of divorce. So at age 15, my parents divorced, and I felt like I lost my best friend because my mom left, and I didn't know if she was going to come back. And so that went on to me feeling abandoned, and I felt like I was constantly searching for something to fill the void of my mother not being around like she was before. And then my dad eventually found another woman and did pretty much the same thing, but in a different way. And it just really fed into me feeling like I'm not good enough. I'm not worth
Mhm.
a good life. So then I go off to college. Long story short there, I was only 2 hours from home, but I felt like I was literally, in a completely different world, than what I was used to, and it really fed into, me feeling like I was just not where I was supposed to be. You know how, like, when
Mm,
you feel like, "I'm here, but I don't feel like I should," like, my gut was telling me I shouldn't be
mm,
here. This isn't the place for me. So
mm,
I got very depressed, and I was searching outwards still for love and acceptance, and I started partying a lot and using drugs, and just a whole whirlwind of things happened there, and ultimately I failed out of college, which really hurt me in
mm,
all aspects because my dream was to go to college. I wanted to be a school teacher, and
mm.
I wanted to really help kids, and just I wanted to teach English, which is weird because I wasn't even good at English, but I digress.
Good way to learn, good way to get
Yeah.
good.
But anyway, so after that happened, I really had no self-worth anymore.
Mm,
I felt useless, and my dad was selling our house that I grew up in, and he was living elsewhere, and there wasn't room for me where he was living. So I was basically forced into being homeless because I was of age. So I couldn't, there
mm,
was nothing saying he had to have me live under his roof. And I ended up moving in with a much older man, and I ended up pregnant with this person.
mm,
And I decided at that age that I couldn't raise my daughter.
mm.
I didn't even know where I was going to sleep half the time, let
Yeah.
alone have a child with me. So I gave her up for adoption.
Mm,
And that is what spiraled me into even more toxic relationships, abuse, and
mm.
just constantly ignoring my own gut feelings on what I knew. I knew what I was doing 98, no,
Yeah.
100% of the time was wrong, but I just was like, "You know what? I'm not worth this. I I deserve all the bad things. I deserve to
Mhm.
be on drugs, to be an alcoholic, to be abused. I deserve all of this." And that ultimately led me to make the worst decision of my life that led me to being incarcerated. I'm a convicted felon, have been for, my goodness, it's been like 13, 14 years since I've been out. And going to jail changed me because before I went to jail, I was very judgmental because I was so negative to myself. So I always felt
Mm,
like, oh, well, if I make fun of this person, that's going to make me feel better. And it
mm,
didn't, obviously. But while I was in there, I learned that we're all the same. And even
mm.
though I made that bad choice, and even though those other women in there with me made the bad choice, we were all surviving the only way we knew how.
Yeah.
And the bottom line of it. And these women were incredible women. And no, maybe their life paths weren't bright and shiny, but they were doing some bad things. But at the same time, there's things that, when you look at it, like, wow, if they would have used that to do good, they would be so powerful. Right. So
Mm,
that really shined a light on how I was viewing the world. And being a convicted felon after getting out, I lived in that shame and guilt of this for up until now, up until I started opening
mm,
up and starting to tell my story. I was very afraid,
mm,
ashamed, embarrassed. So I
mm,
kept that same cycle, toxic relationships, and just not feeling like I knew who I was anymore. And that led me to where I'm at now, which is the polar opposite of where I was. And I was able to overcome all of this, but it's still an ongoing process. So that is my shorter version of my story.
Wow, Amanda, so much there, so much there. And so I'm curious, I'm deeply curious, what was happening in those moments where you said this 100% of the time you knew, right? You had that inner voice, that inner wisdom speaking to you. And yet, you're like, okay, I hear you, and we're going to go in this direction. And because this is something I hear a lot from people where there's that awareness, like, okay, this is not serving my highest and best good, and yet I feel like I'm almost can't choose a different way. So tell me kind of what was going on there for you, and what was a moment where that shifted?
Yeah. So, in the moments where I made the wrong choice for myself, I was thinking about the people surrounding me. So if it
Mm,
was a friend who I thought, if I don't do this, he or she isn't going to want to be around me anymore and I can't lose that person. So it was more of me making choices based on other people's wants and needs of me rather than my own. Um
okay.
yeah, so that was
Yeah.
definitely every single time what was going through my mind no matter what the decision was. I never put me first.
Mm,
And a wake up call was a few years ago. I was in a situation with some toxic people, and me and my husband were newly married, and I was making really bad choices, and I almost destroyed our marriage. Like before it even really got a
mm,
chance to start, I almost destroyed it because I couldn't accept his love because I felt I didn't deserve it. And in those moments of, making these bad choices again and choosing the wrong people to be around and believing when people would tell me that he didn't love me and that I should
mm,
leave him and all this stuff that was a normal for me to hear from other people who were my so-called friends.
yeah.
And he almost left me. And in that moment, everything changed. I was like, I can't live this way. I can't do this. I'm
Mm,
crying every single day. I obviously, I'm doing something wrong here because this isn't the way
mm,
I want to live my life any further, and that
yeah.
was the ultimate wake up call because I had, like, other wake up calls throughout my story, but they never stuck, and
Oh,
this time it did, thankfully, and my husband is still with me, and we're very happy, so
yeah. Yeah, I think that's, Amanda, that's again, it's such a common thing that I hear where for so many people, and myself included, where we kind of wake up and we fall asleep and we wake up and we fall asleep. And the pull of the pattern is so strong that we kind of like break free a little bit, but we don't quite know how to maintain that new state. And so sometimes often right, it takes that rock bottom where kind of everything's on the line, and we wake up and we see that this just is not working. And so how did you then in that journey realize, like, I need to be the main character of my life, I need to be the heroine who saves myself?
yeah, so in that moment, this might be a little much to say, but there's the breakthrough moment happened where I was going to kill myself. I thought
Mm,
either I have to end this. And
mhm,
in that moment of seriously contemplating it and having the plan and all of that, I sat down in I was a closet. I sat down in my closet and I'm
yeah,
crying and I'm thinking, Amanda, this is not who you are, and you need to really start listening to those who are surrounding you who are good for you, and you need to
Mm,
ask for help
mm,
because you need to make the change. Nobody else is going to reach out their hand and make it all perfect like you think for some unknown reason that that's going to be what saves you.
yeah.
You need to reach out your hand and ask for help. And that was truly when I awoke to knowing that I really needed to be my own hero and I really needed to
Mm,
tap into myself more and figure out what I wanted. What does Amanda want? What does Amanda value
mm,
in life? And that
mm.
yeah, that was it.
Wow. And so with that, that pattern, that story going on in your head, I'm not worth it. And so in this moment, you're realizing, wait a minute, I need to do this for myself. And then also those, and we have those moments, the old beliefs, they don't just say, okay, well, we're good now, we're done. Like, no, they're
Yeah.
they're like, are you really sure about that? And
Yes.
so how did you navigate that process where you're realizing, okay, I need to become the woman who creates my own life, and I've got this belief system to kind of unpack that's created a pattern of my life up until that moment. So how did you do that?
Well, first thing I did was I asked for help, like I said. I,
Mm,
was crashing and I went to my husband first and I said, basically, I don't remember my exact conversation with him, but it was along the lines of, "Please help me. I need you to help me see me myself the
mm,
way you see me." And so we would have like all night discussions. And from that, I started journaling a lot and
mm,
reading a lot. I would read self help books. I wish I could remember the name of them at this point. I can't. But reading and just really listening to people who were talking about intuition and how
mm,
to have your own to find the light in your life and to tap into me. And I'm not good at meditating. It's still a process. But
yeah.
I love to visualize.
Mm,
So I started really visualizing my life the way I wanted it. And I visualized, so we were living in an apartment and we're in this house now. It's literally across the street. And I signed my lease for that apartment inside of this house. And I remember thinking when I was in this house that this is going to be my house. So part
mm,
of my visualization was envisioning me and my husband and my kids in this house, and I made that happen. And then I thought about, well, what are my values? And the first thing that popped into my head was second chances. And then the first thought
mm.
after that was, well, Amanda, how can you say your number one value is second chances when you've never given yourself a second chance? You've never forgiven
Wow.
yourself for the things and choices that have happened in your life. And in that, I really started to see, okay, I need to forgive myself. And it was just that
Mm,
constant process. And I still do it today. It hasn't stopped. Like I have to constantly
mhm,
remind myself through affirmations and visualization that I am good enough and I can have the life that I imagine. And I'm creating it as we speak.
mm,
So,
I love that. So, I hear from so many women that I talk to, journaling is such an important
mhm.
step and really truly, getting to know who is Amanda. Who is she? What does she love? What does she want? What are her values? And that you tuned in and listened to that, and that there's so many ways to do that. So if meditation is not your thing, well, then the visualization, right? And
Yes.
and knowing that that's truly how it works when we lean into that and ask ourselves, what would I love? And then take the steps. The universe works too. It works to
Yeah.
support us. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
amazing. I used to think too that instant gratification was my best friend. Like, oh, well, if it doesn't happen
Mm,
right now, then it's never going to happen. Well, it was also changing that thought process because, oh my goodness, if you just wait and you keep going and you keep making the steps
mm.
towards what you want, it's almost like it's magic. It's almost unreal. Like, you're just like, oh, I'm
Yeah.
living in this house now. How did this happen? I have enough
Yeah.
money in my bank account that I don't have to stress if we don't have time to make dinner. I can just order takeout. Like, and these are things I
Mm.
dreamed about and now they're my reality because I
Yeah.
I stayed true to my process and to myself.
Yeah. Yeah. And I see that happen all the time with people when they trust the process, and it starts with what would you love? take the steps you can take, align with the energy of that. And when you look back, you're like, I don't even know how that worked out.
Right.
Looking forward, you're like, there's no way you can see it. But when you start to really work with the universe and magic, right, it's amazing. It's amazing what can happen.
Yes.
Yeah. So Amanda, I'm curious, what were along that journey, right? And recognizing that we're all always in process, right? Our journey, if we're breathing, our journey is not complete. So in your journey so far up to this point, what have been some of the biggest challenges for you?
Wow. So many challenges I go through every single day. A number one challenge for me is fear. I have
Mm,
a lot of fear. Being here today talking with you scares me.
oh,
I'm just a super I'm an introvert, so and I'm
yeah.
always nervous. So that's a huge one. Another one would be negative self-talk really
Mm,
hinders my progress because I can be having a wonderful day and something will trigger something. Like it can be something simple, like I don't know, someone can make some comment about somebody being incarcerated that rubs me the wrong way, and it'll just send me down this spiral and I'll get
mm,
angry. And that's a huge roadblock for me is that negative self-talk. Like, oh, well, look, they
mm,
said that this person isn't a good person. So neither are you, because how are you any different?
oh, yeah.
And things like that. A lot of confidence issues and also telling people that I'm a felon. Like I've gotten a lot better with it
Mm.
as of late, but going into like getting a job like that,
Mm,
checking that box, yes, I am this has always been a trigger for me and a roadblock because
mm,
it kept me from stepping out of my comfort zone to get jobs that I knew I was good enough to get. And it's also made it so I couldn't get certain jobs. So it's just
mm.
yeah, just learning to step out of my comfort zone is it's really hard. And my roadblocks are much based around just that fear, like
Yeah.
blinding fear.
Yeah. Well, good job. I'm so glad you're here today and
Thank you.
stepping out in spite of that fear. And fear is really just the edge of what we've known so far. And so as we step into what it is that we would love for our life, fear is actually part of the process. It's actually part of the process, and it can be a companion. And I heard this great teaching that the only difference between fear and excitement is our breath. Physiologically, that's the only difference for our body. And in the
Oh, wow.
interpretation is the breath. And so for myself, I notice when I'm noticing the fear, I'm like, oh, the breath, the breath. Okay. Because with fear, we shallow breathe, whereas with
Yes.
excitement, we deep breathe.
That's
Yeah.
interesting.
Right?
Wow, I never heard
I
that one
know.
before.
I know. Yeah, I know. I'm like, I am going to use this.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I like that a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah. And I love that you mentioned forgiveness as well. Forgiveness, right? And for
Yeah.
all of us knowing that we at any point in our life, we're showing up the best way that we can from our current state of awareness and skill. And so in any moment, being able to kind of look back and know that for yourself, and that as we know better, we do better. Sometimes we don't always do better.
Yeah. Yeah, and we have to give ourselves grace too, it's not always
Yeah.
gonna be perfect. It's not like I wake up every day and I'm like, "Yes, I'm gonna go talk about my life and make this impact." But even on the days where I wake up feeling down about myself, I still show up like that, and
Mm,
and you have to give yourself grace to know that you're not always going to feel good, and that's okay too. Not every
yeah.
day is sunshine and rainbows. It's just not.
Yes.
And people who portray it that way, they're lying. Sorry, but they are because it's just not.
Yeah,
So,
some days are better than others, right? And knowing
yes.
that when we have those lower moments, we don't have to pitch a tent. It doesn't mean we're
Right.
stuck there, right?
Yep.
We're just moving through it. I
Yeah,
love that.
for sure.
I love that. So what do you think has been or have been the most important things for you in really coming to that point where you're realizing that you are the woman who is creating her own life? So coming from looking to other people for approval, looking, for other people for your sense of self and meaning, and being really worried about, what they thought that you wanted from you, to really coming to, okay, what does Amanda want for Amanda? What have been the most important things for you?
a tricky one. I would say for me, it would be just so when I start oh, okay, I know how to answer this now. So when I started my journey of self-discovery, essentially, it was seeing that I'm showing up as me, but the people who I want in my life are still here. The people who
Mm,
love me, they're still here, and I can be me.
mm,
I don't have to be a chameleon, as I like to call it, to everyone
yeah.
around me. I can be me. And that validated me. Like, it's not like I went out and asked people, hey, do you still like me? Even though now I have like my own values and boundaries, but I did it. I did it. I chose my
Mm,
values and boundaries. And by sticking to those, I created a support system of people. I mean,
mm,
they're all across the world, but my husband, like, he's still here next to me because he believes in me. And I think it's for me, it was imperative for me to learn that because I was always so concerned with people. It was always
mm,
people. And I needed all these people all the time. I felt like I had to have like countless friends. I remember when I was younger looking at my phone contacts and thinking, oh, I only have 10 people on my phone. I'm a loser. And now
mm,
I literally have, I think I talk to my husband and that's okay. So it was really learning that it's okay to be me and that the
mm,
people who truly love me will be there no matter what version of me I am.
mm,
So that was really
mhm,
important to me in my growth, was just realizing that I don't need thousands and thousands and thousands of so-called friends to be whole. I only need me and
mm.
my values and what I believe in, and then all the other stuff just falls into place.
Yeah. And truly what I experience and see too is that as we step forward more fully in who we truly are, then the right people, right?
Yes.
The right people find us. We find our people. We find our
Yes.
people.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's beautiful. Like, I never thought in a million years that I would have people in New Zealand, South Africa, all across. I'm in the US, so all across the US, Canada, like everywhere. And it was just like as soon as I started showing up as me, all of a sudden, all these people that I've never knew before were
Mm,
just there. And guess what? They're my biggest supporters and they're strangers.
mm,
They were strangers. And that's
yeah.
such an incredible thing to happen, and it's possible for all of us. So we just have to show up as us.
Yeah. And the peace that comes with that, right?
Yes.
That peace and that, I mean, you just with that expression, that
Yeah.
relief that comes with being able to show up as yourself in your life.
Yeah. It's very
Yeah.
powerful.
And so, did you have guides and mentors along this process? And if so, what role did they play?
My husband, it was my hugest, I mean, role model, like
Mm,
whatever you want to call him. um, he truly held my hand through it all. And he showed me love and he just really helped me to be able to be okay with being me. Like, even though I had the
mm,
realization on my own, his support truly helped me get there and
mm,
stay there, right? Because he's
yeah.
still here with me. Also, after already discovering me, I have a wonderful coach right now. And he has
Mm,
helped me so much with my story and going public with my story.
mm,
And he was the first stranger I told my story to.
yeah.
And he really opened my eyes to, like, Amanda, like, people are really going to want to hear your story. And that
Mm,
really helped catapult me to where I am now. Um, and I think that's it. Like, my husband's been my
yeah.
constant.
Yeah. Well,
So,
and so, so powerful to have that person who believes in you, who
mhm.
holds that bigger believing for you when you're having maybe a hard time doing yourself. And, if it's your spouse or partner or friends or a coach or a counselor, whoever that is, but that as you're kind of stepping into this newness of becoming Amanda, that here's this person who is reminding you, like, yes, you are worth this. You've got this. You are lovable. You are worthy. You can do it.
Yeah, for sure. And then what I just thought of this as you were talking, there's this Infinite Possibilities. His name's Mike Dooley, and
Love his stuff.
oh my gosh, like he is what opened my door to the universe and how
Yeah.
to thoughts become things, right? And I'm like, what does he
Mm.
mean by that? And that was a huge part. I can't believe I forgot to mention this, but that was a huge part of me growing into who I am now, because I started to read his notes from the universe and started
Mhm.
to tap into his teachings and how I could also manifest the life I imagine having. So that was a huge part of it too. Now I don't know him personally, I wish, but um, he was a huge
Put
part of
it in
it.
your vision. Put it in your
Yes.
vision. Yeah, I've been receiving the notes from the universe for gosh, close to 20 years now.
Oh,
And
wow.
just yeah, every time I'm like, ah,
Mm,
wow, wow, right?
yeah, they're so awesome.
So what, if you could speak heart to heart, if you could say something, send a message to someone who's listening right now, what would that be? What would you want them to know?
I would want them to know that you need to look inward for love and acceptance,
Mm,
because the more we look outward, the more we lose ourselves. And you have everything, I mean, everything you need inside of you to have the life you imagine. You're worth it,
mm,
and you are enough no matter what you have been through. That would be it.
mm. I love that. I love that. And so, Amanda, for people who want to connect with you, where can they find you?
Oh, you can definitely find me on Facebook. My name on there is Amanda Marie Acker. You can friend request me. I'm hugely active on there. I also just started my own Facebook group. It's called the Let Good Things In Show, which is also my podcast. And or if you're not comfortable on social media and you want to send something private, you can always email me, amanda@amandaacker.com.
Awesome. And I will include all of those links as always in the show notes so people can connect with you. And so your podcast is Let the Good Things In.
It's the let whoa, I just stumbled over
The
my
Let
own
Good
show.
Things In show.
Yes, the Let Good Things In show. That's it. Yes, it launched July 22nd, so it's a baby yet. So,
Oh,
but yeah,
congratulations.
thank you.
Congratulations. Okay, well, we'll definitely check in and tune in and check that out. So, thank you so, so much, Amanda. I so appreciate your time, your powerful story, your words of inspiration and hope for our listeners. And as always, if you're listening, if you could like, subscribe, do all the podcast things, that would be great. And have a great day.